morning, everyone. Welcome to this regular meeting of the El Paso MPO. Today is, what's today?
Friday, 27th.
Friday, April 26th. It is 9:08. This session is now in order. We can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Open comment.
Mr. Mike Rooney?
Mr. Rooney?
Rooney, yes.
Mike Rooney, I'm sorry, sometimes I can't hear you back there. I was going to bring this up last month, and I figured, oh, it's an anomaly, let it pass. They did a real good job repaving that section of George Dieter between Montwood and Pebble Hills. And the strange thing is instead of putting in the center lane, they put in the bike lane and the dashes. But they didn't put in a center lane, which was, I encountered it the first, and this was over a month. And the first time I encountered it, I was coming back, I turned on George Dieter going south at night, and I couldn't figure out what in the heck was happening. Then it dawned on me, it's after a block, it's a bike lane. And and by putting in the buffer, they moved the center lane to the left. And I noticed the cars on the left trying to pass didn't feel they had enough room. So after a while, I said, to hell with it. And I noticed over the last month, a lot of other people have been doing it and just driving over the buffer. It seems like the first thing that should have been done is put in the center lane, which isn't going to change, and then come in later and put in the bike lane. To me, it was just a boneheaded, something that was boneheaded. Now, we have these large staffs, and we pay a lot of money for these staff people, and that is something that they should be taking care of instead of me having to come down here and bring it to your attention. The city's under the city manager tries to do a lot of great things. I get Councilman Rivera's weekly email newsletter and Councilwoman Hernandez, and they're very good and very detailed. They're two of the best. So I know weekly what the many neat things the city is trying to do. So could you get on the staff people putting in a center lane? That's a safety issue. If we lived in Saigon or Hanoi or a Far Eastern a city in the Far East where bicycles were prominent, that would be different, but we don't. So can you bring that to some staff members' attention? I know it's not Mayor Margot's fault or the city managers. That's just a staff issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rudy. Any other comments?
Yes, Dan Ferguson?
Good morning. My name is Dan Ferguson. I'm the father of Amanda Ferguson. She was killed crossing Mesa Street on Cincinnati Avenue on Thanksgiving Day, the 22nd. Since that time, I've been trying to figure out a way to make the stretch around Cincinnati Street, the Party District area, safer. I've approached Peter with the idea before. I've approached TxDOT with the idea before. TxDOT says that the Mesa is owned by, or Peter says Mesa is owned by the state. Okay, so there's nothing they can really do about the Mesa Road. TxDOT tells me that the city owns the sidewalks and the stuff around there, so there's really nothing that the TxDOT can do. In the meantime, my daughter was the 12th person that's been killed in that stretch of highway in the last 10 years. It's a dangerous area. I walked it since my daughter's death. There are cars going 45 miles an hour within 1 foot of pedestrians in that area. I've thrown out ideas about a walkover. They say it's ADA not possible, yet you see them in Austin where they have elevators and walkovers that take people up across. I've talked about a underground type issue. Money is a problem there. I've been to Washington, D.C. and met with President Trump about angel dads and stuff, and I've seen in Washington where they have the barriers that come up on a red light, stop traffic, and before it turns green, they go back down. I've been on Fort Bliss where I've seen poles come up out of the ground on red lights and go back down, after it turns green. It seems to me that it's a political volleyball between the city and the state, TxDOT. One is passing the ball to the other one is passing the ball back and forth. In the meantime, our kids are getting killed in this little area. I know I'm a grieving father, but if I can do anything to stop one other kid, one other person, maybe your son, maybe your granddaughter, from getting killed in an area that's been proven unsafe for the last 10 years, something needs to be done here. It's a safety issue. It's a safety issue. It was 5 months ago, 2 days ago, when my daughter was killed. The guy ran 2 red lights. Obviously, he'd been drinking and stuff. But, the year before, a nurse got her head decapitated right there at the same area, and it's been proven over the last 10 years that 10 to 12 people have died in that area. It's not only that area, it's a little bit further down toward UTEP. You drive down Mesa, you see students crossing that area all the time, too. There has to be some method of getting them across Mesa Street, either under, over, block the intersections while the lights are turned green. Simple solution around Cincinnati Street is divert traffic on the party nights, okay, down to Oregon Street, back up. Just a simple diversion. Thank you guys for your attention. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to the rest of the agenda here, we have a discussion and action. Item number 1, approve the minutes for March 22nd, 2019 for the TPB. I have a motion on the floor to approve. Is there a second? Second. The motion has been seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Abstentions. Motion carries unanimously. Item has been approved. Item number 2, if you can read that for me, please.
Item number 2, amend the Destino 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and the Destino 2019-2022 Transportation Improvement Program. 2A, amend the Pelicano Drive Widening Build Project, MPO ID P410X-15A/CSJ 0924-06-534, widen from 2 lanes to 6 lanes, divided with 5 feet bike lanes and 5 feet multi-purpose path, and landscaping to move from fiscal year 2019 to fiscal year 2020. Construction cost includes $1,780,000 of Cat 5 congestion mitigation and air quality, $8,220,000 of Cat 7 surface transportation program, Metro Mobility, and $13 million Cat 10 coordinated border infrastructure, totaling $23 million. B, amend the University Avenue Pedestrian and Bike Enhancement Phase 3 project, MPO ID E108X-3/CSJ 0924-06-064. 2, number 1, reflect TxDOT administrative cost to adding engineering as a phase of the project, reflecting preliminary engineering from $158,147 to $99,496. Construction from $1,324,768 to 1,225,272 for a new total project cost of 1,324,768. Number 2, change the old limits from starting at a distance of 1,035 feet in a southwesterly direction on University Avenue from the referenced city monument at Kansas Street and University Avenue to a point southwesternly 450 feet long University Avenue to the new limits from on University 1,035 feet west of Kansas to 1,480 feet, 85 feet west of Kansas Street. And number 3, move from fiscal year 2019 to fiscal year 2022.
2020.
Sorry, yes, fiscal year 2020. C, deprogram the Bluetooth detectors and radar vehicle sensing devices on US 54 project, MPO ID F201X/CSJ 0167-01-115, using $730,000 of Cat 5 CMAQ in fiscal year 2020. D, program the install RSVDs and CCTVs on US 54 project, MPO ID F202X/CSJ 0167-01-127 from FM 2529 Macomb Street to the New Mexico state line using $730,000 of Cat 5 CMAQ in fiscal year 2020. And E, amend the Dyer RTS Operating Assistance Year 1 2019 project, MPO ID T065X-A/CSJ 0924/06588 for additional CMAQ funding in the amount of $1,250,000 contingent upon if a deficient exists in a fiscal year 2020. Sun Metro will deprogram projects in fiscal year 2020 in the amount of $1,250,000 or less to address the deficit.
You can breathe.
Good morning. Yes, good morning. Greg McNichol with the TPAC. Let me walk you through these items, and I'm not sure how you want to vote on them. If you want to vote on like 2A, then 2B, because I can talk to them in that fashion or talk to all of them at your, whatever your preference is.
Make a motion for all three.
Okay.
Okay, let me walk you through them real quickly. Then on item 2A, this project is important because it is addresses conformity issues that we need so it does need to go forward. And it's moving from fiscal year 2019 to 2020. On item B, dealing with moving the University Avenue pedestrian project, I want to point out this is a 6-block segment. 2 of the segments have already been completed by UTEP. Currently, the City of El Paso is working on a 2-block segment. This is the last 2, which is in the middle. In the course of trying to get the letter of authority, there were some requests made by the Austin officials to change to reflect the administrative costs. So that's why item 1 is in here now. And then item 2, the changing the limits is just changing the wording. I want to make sure everybody understands that. The limits of the project have not changed. I think it has to deal with a DOS program that it can only have so many characters. And so this is why the wording change is taking place. It does require, though, a STIP provision, which is causing it to slip into the next fiscal year. This is a project that we were all hoping to get finished on time. A lot of good effort taking place between TxDOT and City of El Paso and UTEP to try to get this one finished. Item C, yes, sir.
The move from FY 2019 to 2020. So currently there's one phase that's already being constructed. You already said that the UTEP phase is already there. How is that going to change? Is there going to be I mean, practically, how's that going to change?
Unfortunately, it'll end up being, there'll be 2 blocks completed on the east end from Stanton back to Oregon.
Yeah.
And then basically the other 2 blocks that take you from the campus back out to about the Arroyo, where the guard shack is roughly. And so, yes, that 2-block segment, there's just no physical way to get we need the letter of authority before we can do the environmental, for example. And then by the time you plug those in, there's no way to get the job completed inside the 2019 year.
this
So
is-
we have to
this is-
slide it into 2020.
Essentially, the section from Oregon to
To the
sort
guard
of
shack is the one
entrance of
section missing
UTEP.
right now.
And that's the one that's going to be pushed back.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
just trying to get accommodate, getting all the Ts crossed and the Is dotted.
Okay.
The project, I would say, is 95% complete on the construction drawings. Again, really good support from the local district office and kind of continuing to help us get this project as far along as we possibly could before we, like I said, ran into a Ts and Is.
Got it. Thank
All
you.
right, you're welcome. Item 2C, on this project, it turns out that they have money within the project to go ahead and do the Bluetooth detectors and radar vehicle sensing devices, so it was already included in the project. It didn't need that funding, so it's being deprogrammed from item C and moved into item D, and it allows those RVSDs to continue on and allows TxDOT better visibility and control of the streets. So we recommend that one to you. The last one was item 2E. This one was at the time when this was presented to the TPAC board, there was a concern over the city of San Antonio also now moving into non-containment and getting access to CMAQ funds. We understood there might be an impact to the El Paso district area because of that. And so that's why the contingency component was added to this item, so that if funds needed to get returned to the state, then there was a mechanism for that to happen with. I understand from Roger that some of that's been resolved by the state since then. So we recommend these 5 items to you for your approval.
So I have a motion on the floor made by Mayor Margot. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any other discussion by the board?
I had one question.
Yes.
Just for clarification, the Pelicano item is the far east part of Pelicano? Is that what we're referring to?
I'm gonna defer.
The widening, Pelicano widening?
They're coming up here in just a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good morning, Chair Board. Jose Londeros, Director of Planning and Development for the County of El Paso. The Pelicano winding limits are from Loop 375 moving east towards Darrington, formerly Berryville. Yeah, at the intersection of Berryville. So that's the FY19 project that's moving. We ran into a few issues when the government shut down at the beginning of the year, and then also we were required to do an architectural survey on some of the land as part of the environmental process for one of the off-site ponds, and so that's added some time to the timeline, and so we're shifting the let date from July 2019 to November of 2019, so just for a few months, knowing full well that once we move through the environmental process and we have our design complete, that we may let that as early as September of 19 and fiscal year 20, if possible.
But this project goes all the way to what was once Berryville?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
it's a
full-
3-mile stretch.
It's the full extent?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
6 lanes divided, meaning 3 lanes? Sorry.
Coming back.
No,
Mr.
excuse me.
Landeros, I apologize.
Yes, it is a 6-lane divided, so 3 lanes in each direction, hike and bike trails, dedicated bike lanes, and other pedestrian improvements, full illumination, landscape medians.
And the original design was 1 lane each way?
We have 2 lanes. Currently in some areas we have 4 lanes as we approach the intersection, but for the largest stretch of the road, we have 2 lanes just going right next to each other, so there's no division. And with the amount of traffic that's being generated due to the development in the area, that's what's prompting the redevelopment and reconstruction of the roadway.
Any other questions? Saying none, I do have a motion on the floor. The motion has been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, item number 3 under reports, Congestion Management Process Ad Hoc Committee. Last month, we established the CMP Committee, which is comprised of Mayor Margot, Mr. Bob Bielik, and Ms. Norma Palacios. What we're trying to do today is establish, or I'm going to appoint several individuals to offer technical support for the development of the Congestion Management Plan. And those individuals are going to include Mr. Raul Escobedo from Sun Metro, Yvette Hernandez from the City of El Paso, Marty Boyd from TxDOT, Mr. Jose Landeros from the County of El Paso, Greg Nickel from UTEP, Samuel Paz from Doña Ana County, and Harold Love from New Mexico DOT. Okay? So that'd be the appointment for that, and then that puts us at item number 4, impact of delays at the ports of entries, and I'll defer that to.
Let me go back to number 3 if I can.
Sure.
Eduardo, now that we've got that set up, I'm gonna rely on you to tell me when we need to have our first meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The first meeting has been scheduled already for May the 6th.
May the 6th.
With
So
the
my staff's been
CMP committee
informed.
and the ad hoc committee, which
Okay.
like the chair said, will be providing more technical support and helping MPO staff and make sure that we complete on time.
I understand it was a dormant committee before, but we'll
Correct.
do what we can.
Fantastic.
Yes, sir.
Now down to item number 4, impact of delays at the ports of entry.
I asked for a study last month about what the environmental impacts were on the delays at the bridges, and Eduardo did it. Just by way of background, and it seems to be, we're considered the ground zero for immigration issues right now on a national basis. You know, we have 28 bridges that cross from Texas to Mexico. 6 of those bridges are here. We had $108 billion of trade in 2018, imports and exports, going through those 6 bridges last year. We are the 10th or the 11th largest land port. We swap off between Detroit and us, seems to be year by year. I don't think there's a real recognition of the size of our ports of entry and what it means. On a daily basis, we have approximately 2,600 commercial vehicles coming north that comprise an approximate valuation of $212 million in cargo. On a regular day, we have 35,000 private passenger vehicles that come north. And we have 20,000 pedestrians that come north, and as I say on national news, legal pedestrians coming north. The movement of CBP personnel to process the migrants coming through, which the numbers are increasing. Some of us, county judge and I and a few others, get the regular numbers every day. It's somewhere between, well, it used to be 300 to 500 max. It's now 700 to 1,000 on a daily basis. So they've taken CBP personnel off the bridges to help process the migrants. The standard processing form is that they are allowed to, the law allows them to seek asylum not just only at ports of entry, and this is because of a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision, but also anywhere along the border. So this is why it requires more manpower that they haven't had. They've taken 750 CBP personnel off the bridges along and moved them into processing. As a result, the typical wait time for a private passenger vehicle is anywhere from 2 to 5 hours. They're telling me it's up to 2 hours on pedestrians. The trucks, and when we closed Bota 2 Saturdays ago, as I recall, and they shifted them down to Zaragoza, on the Mexican side, the queue was over 2 miles long. And it was taking as much as 2 days to cross. So when they would cross, because of the just-in-time manufacturing that most people aren't thinking about in our factories, then they would have to be air freighted. The parts, whether they be steering wheels or wiring harnesses or lock mechanisms or whatever, which shut down manufacturing lines for the automobile factories in the Midwest because of the 2-day just-in-time inventory limit where they are right now, down to 2 days. They're air freighted, so that's add more costs. But the environmental costs have not been articulated or understood. The overall, and where I'm gonna let you, I met chemistry and was defeated in college when I was in pre-med, so I'm not gonna go through the exact part. But the environmental from the countywide is not significant in what's been upgraded. I mean, in what's happening between March and April. But in that area of central El Paso, it is significant, the changes. Do you want to go through those numbers for them?
Sure.
And all that. And this is what we need to understand. This is what I'm trying to convey to the federal government and what they're doing and not doing as a result of the impacts on us. One other thing that I look at from a parochial standpoint as mayor is that up to 15% of our retail trade is a Mexican consumer. 22% of the city's budget is sales tax revenues. That will be declining. The rolling average numbers I've gotten through February, we're actually up 5-point-some-odd%. What was it, Tommy, 5.2 or 4 or something like that on a year-to-date basis. So, but we haven't seen this impact yet. And so it's going to cover the whole region. But talk about, Eduardo, the specific emission issues in that area of El Paso.
Right, so the mayor requested MPO staff to see if we could do a quick analysis on the impact of the air quality impacts of this situation. So MPO staff prepared this presentation, so we're going to go, it's a lot of slides, but we'll go really quickly just to show you the impact of the queues. So this is for the Paso del Norte Bridge. What you see in yellow is the queue. Well, we're doing a before and after. The before is March, the after is April, since the CBP officers were moved out of our ports of entry. So this is for the midnight to 6 a.m. period at PDN. You see the yellow line. That's these are all before. That's the average queue. Reduces from 10 to 3, from 3 to 6, and then 6 to 8, and then 8 to midnight. Right. So then for after, this is for the same periods, midnight to 6 a.m., so the queue doesn't change very much. But here we start seeing the impact. The yellow line, which is the average queue after the fact, and the black circle represents the before. So you can see how the queues for the same period of time are much longer. Obviously, that represents much longer crossing times. For 10 to 3, you see the same impact. 3 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 to midnight. Now for the Bridge of the Americas, where we do have autos and trucks. This is the before situation for the different periods of the day. And now this is the after. Again, the black circles represent the before, and now you see the new queues. We needed to even expand the aerial to show the extent of the queue. That's for 6 to 10 in the morning, 10 to 3, 3 to 6, and then obviously later in the day it's less. For Zaragoza, the same thing. This is the before throughout the day. And then this is the after. Same thing, the dots that you see, the black dots are the before, and now you see the length of the queue throughout the day. So what does that mean in terms of emissions? Well, what we estimated was that we estimated the differential, in other words, the before and after. Now, this is not to say that the situation before was good at all. I mean, we still had a lot of delays, and all the local communities have been asking for more CBP personnel to make the crossing times shorter. But what we're estimating here is the differential. So you see in the bottom, in the rectangle there, the 4 pollutants, CO, NOx, VOCs, and PM10.
Those are tons.
Yeah, right. And the important thing is that the last column, if you look at the increase, that delta, that increase in travel time of all these vehicles idling, waiting to cross, 165% for CO, 279%, 240%. I mean, that's huge in terms, but these are all the vehicles that are waiting to cross. Like the mayor said, at the regional level, it may not be such a big impact because you know, the impact is exclusively at the ports of entry that what we're analyzing here. However, if you look at this increase, and think about the communities that are close to the ports of entry, that is a major health hazard. Again, so this is just a quick analysis that we did, Mayor, and I don't know if you want to close with anything else.
People need to understand that the ramifications of this migrant issue are not just simply unfettered entrance and the processing with the NGO, which is the Annunciation House, et cetera, because they pass through it. The cost is, these are some of the costs that we're feeling, and they haven't truly been quantified. From a financial standpoint, we're trying to, we're getting asked for that information and provide it to our Congresswoman and as well as others. But ladies and gentlemen, this ain't good at all. And this is a federal issue that needs to be resolved. And as I've said on numerous occasions, there hasn't been exhibited the intestinal fortitude by Congress on either side of the aisle in either house to get it done for 30 years. And until they do that, we're going to continue to pay the price.
Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
There's been a number of videos that anybody that's seen as the queues that are going on in Juarez. Is there any information about that? I know that last week before the Easter holiday, the Santa Teresa Port of Entry probably had close to a 3 mile long passenger line. Is there any information from the Mexican side that we can share or look at?
Could I answer that?
Sure.
I met with, Sam and I had lunch yesterday with Congressman Will Hurd, and there was Alejandro de la Vega. Foster was there talking about some of the statistics. Their biggest concern is that their truckers, first of all, when they come after 2 days, they're precluded from driving any further. Got to change the time. And what they're seeing is their trucks are going to Laredo because there's not the wait at Laredo for whatever reason, and they can't figure it out. This is the same thing I think Alan Russell and Tecma talked about. Santa Teresa goes up and down. They've had long waits, and then they've had no waits. We can't get our hands around it, but we're taking the brunt of it. And her concerns was, as head of economic development for the state of Chihuahua, is that they are also, correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, she said that they were taking some manufacturing lines that had normally been here, part of the maquilas, and moving them further east because of this transportation. That may not ever come back. So we can't figure it out. They're talking to CBP. I'm talking to CBP. I've got some meetings next week with some folks from Washington, and I don't know what the deal is. I don't know why some are and some aren't. Am I right, Sam? Is that what you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And her concern with moving these transportation hubs is that they may never come back.
Yeah.
You know, because they're making the capital investment to actually relocate. So we're losing an opportunity here to continue with the progress that we've made. We're actually going backwards, not forward.
Well, that leads me directly to my sort of next question, and that would be to understand the comparison to other ports of entry, especially within the Rio Grande Valley, Laredo, and other communities
It's faster
there.
down there. Now Laredo has some processing that's better than we have here. They've got one.
But
dedicated line.
they haven't taken the officers off the ports of entry like they have here?
Well, no, they've done it too, but their processing is more expedient than ours from a technology standpoint, at least the way I've been, and the Mayor of Laredo has shared at some meetings that I've been. We don't have that yet. So, but there's a disconnect somewhere, and we're trying to get to the bottom of why are we, in effect, being penalized. We're the second highest crossings for migrants. McAllen's number 1, we're number 2, and then San Diego, Tijuana's number 3.
And then the other thing too, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but from what I'm being told is that the bridges are closing in the evenings entirely during the weekdays.
I haven't heard that.
So, and that there's intermittent closing for maintenance during the day.
Are you hearing that? No, I don't think so. I'll let you comment on that.
Yeah, no, I don't think, what they do is they do what they were doing prior to that, is they would close periodically just to do some type of testing in case in the event preparing that they were gonna have to close the bridges completely. But they were never longer than half an hour. They was doing, and
Why-
lately they've not been doing that.
Might
They're
I
not gonna do
comment
that.
on our offer to increase our overtime pay and what they said?
Right, and so we do, for those of you, you know, you all know that we do participate in the P3 program where we do pay, the city of El Paso does pay for overtime for CBP officers so they can have the lanes open during peak times. And so when we talked to CBP about doing
We
that,
pay, tell them
they
what we
said
pay.
no.
We pay 1.6 million.
Right, $1.6 million a year. And when we offered to pay for more, they said no, because they simply don't have the officers to put to the overtime. And in fact, there's some hours in what we've already agreed to on the overtime that they've just given back, because they just don't have the personnel to cover that.
We're trying to do everything we can.
Yeah.
The big key is Washington.
I mean, this is not an action item, so there's no way that the MPO can develop a letter or something with the concern expressed from a regional perspective.
No, I just wanted you to see the data, and that we have an understanding of what the impact was from an environmental standpoint.
Mayor, one of the long-term that would have helped us, and we need to, there's a group that asked to see if maybe yourself, myself, and other people to really get more collaboration from the Mexican side, because if that highway to Portillo, to Canotillo Bridge had been available, a lot of the things that we're talking about would have been not taken care of, but there'd be a release on that, and not having that highway come in to that, I mean, that would have been an incredible, so I think I've talked to GCC, of course, to see if we could get their support, because that's not a quick answer, but at least we're looking to the future, that we did so much money that went into that strategy, and yet it's zero. I mean, I was there a couple of weeks ago, and no traffic coming through, and so that's a big issue.
I tell you, Judge, the information Alejandro gave us yesterday was really disappointing, and we need to get, she's supposed to give me some more direct information.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you know, I worked for the maquiladora, and they're extremely sensitive to anything futuristic. They create strategies on a 4 months, 5 months, and if there's any evidence that something might not happen, their thinking goes in a different direction of maybe going somewhere else, changing their plans, bringing down their production lines. So it's like the mayor said, it's extremely vulnerable that we could lose the maquiladora is one of the sources of our income.
One thing to add, Alejandro did meet with Hector Mancha, who runs ICE, and the bridges yesterday. I had staff there, and I haven't gotten the complete report, but talking about all of this, so, I mean, until Washington does something, I'm not
Yeah,
sure
it's a
what can
tipping
happen.
point. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you,
a
Mayor.
couple things. This is just a report, but if you wish, we could enter an action item for next month to pass a resolution to talk about this. You know, we'll be happy to draft it and circulate it, if that's appropriate for next month.
Any objection?
And then the second item is that this discussion is very relevant. You're gonna hear,
Yes, sir.
well, of support for, or, you know, requesting CBP to return, you know, agents to the ports?
They've told us that they're fast-tracking the hiring. They got approval for 450. I met with them, and I'm supposed to meet with some more from Washington. But Sam and I were talking, it takes, what'd you say, 9 months to go through their academy. There's nothing immediate. The most immediate solution would be the change in that William Wilberforce Anti-Trafficking Victims Act of 2008 that basically gives unfettered entrance for those for migrants from those Central American countries. And if you all don't understand it, that was done in 2008 when unaccompanied minors were coming out of El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala, and we were fearful as a nation of them getting caught up in our drug wars, the drug wars in Mexico, and being used as mules or in human trafficking. So they passed this bill that basically gives unfettered entrance. It's expanded into family. They're allowing families. But if you'll notice, no Mexican is eligible. It's only those countries contiguous to Mexico under that bill. And until they can change that and stop that, then we've got problems. they no longer have to only enter at ports of entry, they can go all along the border. And so I don't see any immediate solution.
The processing center could be a solution, but I think as a community, we weren't sure as to how to support it or not support it. But at a processing center, you have economy of scale. And so you get a lot of people in one place instead of what they're doing now. And you know, I think we'd have to look at what's the root cause and what are some of the things that we need to support. If we support it too general, it's not going to make an impact. If we believe that it's a processing center can make a difference, then we have to sort of say, you know, what's happening and how do we get this taken care of? Because they were going to look at maybe 2,000 people being processed. Right now, they're all over the place, pulling agents from different places. So I think that was, but we did get some pushback from the community as having the processing center, and then that pushed it away, but that created some issues as well. So, you know, it's hard to have both, you know, not wanting the processing center, but also wanting a better flow of refugees and therefore the usage of agents.
Yeah, County Judge, I think you and the mayor both bring up good points. I think the resolution that I would think that would make the most sense, and that would probably be the easiest for the body to accept would be towards staffing to previous levels and looking at for whatever processing
Whatever
they
it
need
takes
to not use officers that are at our ports of entry. Because I think that those facts that the mayor brings up in terms of the economic realities of those ports of entry crossing every single day are important to include. I think that the information relating to the environmental concerns that are being exhibited in terms of air quality are important to include as well. But I think ultimately it's about trying to get the federal government to understand that there's a much larger impact when they take folks off the ports of entry than they realize, or maybe they do realize and they're just putting El Paso as an example, but to get them to understand that if there's ability for them to take other officers from other parts of DHS or Border Patrol or CPB, maybe not from this state, but from some other places to help with what's going on with the migrants, that's an important thing to do. I think more so than changing the law or looking at the processing center. I think both of those are important discussions, but I think in terms of what would be germane and make sense from this organization would be to focus on those facts relating to the amount of dollars that are crossing every single day, the air quality, and the need to adequately staff those ports of entry. And you can make an argument based upon the fact that we already have a P3 program that they weren't even adequately staffed before this was going on with these asylum seekers. But I
And
think
the
that
collateral
would make
effect,
sense.
it behooves them as well, Peter, because the turnover is incredible. You're asking people that wanted to get hired for one reason, and now they're doing something completely different. It's extremely stressful for them to be dealing with that all day long.
Yeah.
And so it behooves them to figure out how to do this right, because everybody's getting stressed out. You know, we are from an economic standpoint, and they are from recruiting. They spend a lot of money in recruiting, millions of dollars, and I think they ended up with 15 agents kind of thing. And so it's like the mayor says, and we're at a tipping point that we need to, whatever support every group like ours can give it. I think somebody's got to speak up, and we just can't sit back and this is, I think, the group to be able to do that, whatever it is that we determine.
Yeah.
We're going to hear a presentation later on, and that maybe it'd be relevant to move that item, given that these are all reports. This has to do with the Texas-Mexico border master plan. This discussion that we're having here is so important, and I really, really encourage everybody to attend the meetings that the text that is going to be hosting for the border master plan, because again, it's so important that they hear the El Paso, Juarez, for our region, that includes even Santa Teresa as well, within the statewide context. All the things that we're talking about here are super important that they get memorialized in the discussions of the border master plan. So I don't know, do we need a motion for moving?
Yeah, it's not an action item at this point. But, I think there's a consensus that the board is looking for a resolution for the next meeting, that it does express some support, and I think Representative Schwarzbein explained it well, that, I mean, we are a transportation agency, that should be a focus on how everything ties to that. I know Mayor introduced it, so I'm not sure if you two want to work together and come with development, or develop a resolution that we can bring forward to this board.
I'd be more than happy to help out.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I wrote, at the behest of our city council's admonition to me, we wrote a couple of weeks ago a letter on the immigration issue and border impact to our two congresspersons and two U.S. senators about this. So I'd rather have something that has a little bit more different, focusing on the environmental side and its impact, different from what we were doing on the economic side. I think the environmental area is the issue to focus on. So we'll come up with something like that, and maybe we'll have a little different perspective response.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Item number 5, Category 2 project list in TxDOT's FY 2020 Unified Transportation Program.
The only point that we wanted to raise here was that the city and the county and a lot of folks have gone up to Austin and begun discussions with the commission on the priorities of the region. And what we just wanted to let you know is we're working on ways to take the 4 projects that we've talked about as priorities, and I think we mentioned them here, and those need to be worked into our TIP, not necessarily in 2020, but over the next few years, so that this area is speaking with one voice as to what is important. And in terms of that, we have to get a few things done before we get to those 4 major projects. And that's some of what you see up here right now, is that the MPO took a look at these and ranked them as critical, red, yellow, and blue. So why don't you describe that for us?
So what you see here is more procedural. TxDOT sent us the list of the Category 2 projects, which are the big projects and mobility projects, and with a request for us to like rank them. But again, this is a list that was prepared more than a year ago, and like Mr. Bielik said, knowing that there's been a lot of chatter, a lot for the different projects, the regional priorities may be changing. So in order not to make this more complicated, we decided to rank these as low, medium, high, so that we can open the discussion here in the next few weeks and months to see if our regional priorities are indeed going to change. And this would be, like Mr. Bielik said, for the other priority projects that some groups have been talking about.
And if anybody watched the Transportation Commission meeting yesterday, and they're televised, so you can watch them via the internet, all of the discussion on Category 12, which is the discretionary funding, centered around roadways that are on the top 100 congested list. And of the 4 projects that we've talked about as being regional priorities, 3 of them are on I-10. And there are 3 segments of I-10 which are on that list. So that's what we really need to capitalize on.
Right. And again, just FYI, starting with the TPAC meeting next week, we're going to start introducing these projects within the MPO arena. We're having different groups make presentations and start the discussion here. But in order to put these projects into the new fiscal year 20 UTP for TxDOT, it is important for us to start that discussion. So starting next week, we will introduce them.
Discussion by the board? Seeing none, thank you for the update. Do you want to mention anything about item 7, or are we okay?
Well, let's go through 6 and then we'll
Oh, 6, I'm
come
sorry.
back to 7.
Administrative amendment to add $10.1 million to the Loop 375 widening project from SPURB 601 to US 62-180 Montana, MPO ID F057X-CAP/CSJ 2552-02-028 in FY 2019. This project is currently funded with $27.3 million of Category 2 and $17.3 million of Category 4 federal funds.
Yeah, so this item is just an FYI for the board. The additional funds, and maybe you can talk a little about the details about, but procedurally, this was an administrative amendment that didn't have to go through the official or the formal STIP amendment process. So we're just bringing it here for, as FYI to the board.
And this really has to do with the fact that we're talking about the section of Loop 375 from Montana to 601. And originally, the cost was based on simply widening and adding the frontage roads. One of the real issues is that curve that is just north of Montana. When you go back and look at that curve, it's designed for 60 miles an hour. We've got a speed limit of 65 on it, and people drive 75 and 80. And we've had a number of fatalities on that curve. So one of the things that's changed the cost of this project is flattening that curve out, bringing it up to a reasonable design speed, which has added cost to the project.
Questions? Seeing none. Thank you again for the update. Item 7? Oh, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
How does that fall under an administrative amendment, moving $10 million from one project to another?
Yeah, the rules state that it's administrative as long as a change in federal funding does not exceed 50%. So the additional 10 million does not change. It's less than the 50% that was already programmed. So that's the reason why it's an administrative amendment.
But you're moving it from one project to another?
No, it's the same project.
It's the same project.
Yeah, the change is only adding
Okay.
more Category 2 to that.
It just, because reading it, it says from state spur 601 to, that's why I was reading it, that it was moving from one
Right.
to another.
Yeah, those are
Okay.
the limits of the project, right?
Thank you.
So for clarification, if this money isn't being transferred from another project?
No. It
So-
is adding more funds to the same project.
To correct with the curve?
Well, like Mr. Bielik said, the scope changes.
I just, doing light to some of the public speakers that we had here, we're saying that we're emphasizing public safety and adding $10 million more on a highway when we know that there's clear issues with pedestrian safety on other state highways here. And I just want the record to show that we're choosing to add $10 million more rather than try to tackle some serious issues.
So where's the $10 million coming from? I know it's from the same project, but I don't understand that because I need clarification.
It's the same Category 2 funds that are managed by TxDOT.
So it's from TxDOT money? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not pulling it out from some,
Well, we're pulling it out from another TxDOT project.
so then that's gonna be, that other project is gonna be pushed further?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Is that
Got it.
the money that you're using this for, that project's gonna be delayed, correct? Okay.
So it
That's-
is being pulled from one project to another, but they're using TxDOT funds to do that. And what project is it? I guess
Are you
that's what
going
I'm
to
not.
delay?
Huh?
What project?
Yeah,
is
what
going
project is
delay?
gonna be delayed? I mean, this is,
From the balance that TxDOT has control over.
balance of what?
Category 2, which can only be spent on state system roadways.
Could this be used on Mesa Street?
It
During
can be
your
used on
upcoming
Mesa Street, but
reconstruction?
it can't do the things that you're talking about doing on Mesa Street. We do have a corridor study on Mesa Street that has a long-range solution to some of those issues. $10 million isn't even close to talking about what we need to do. You're talking hundreds of millions of dollars to do that.
there's other short-term things that you could explore as well. The $10 million certainly would help.
I hear you.
$2 million would help with that matter, in terms of lighting, which is deficient, in terms of bollards, other sort of safety mechanisms. I'm not really comfortable supporting this right now without understanding more information about how this would impact. So I'd like to make a, I'd like.
There's no action.
Wow. Wow, that's,
Information.
wow.
So
How
did you mention
informative.
what project was besides the balance?
So what project is this being taken
Besides-
from? Is this
It's
a
from
fund
the
that's-
balances, not from a project.
Excess funds.
Excess funds that could be used, just excess funds that could be used on any state highway? Is that what category 2 would, okay. So we're choosing to use excess funds on a state highway that's not Mesa, but on this, correct?
That's correct.
Great.
I would suggest in the future that it be written that way, that it be clarified, like if it is excess funds that were left over from that state's first 601, that it should specifically state that. Because the way it reads, it's being moved from one project to another.
Well, it is being moved from one project
Right,
to
but
another.
what he's saying is that it's excess funds left over. You're
Yeah, that's what he
saying,
said.
It's a category 2 balance, yes.
Just to clarify for him, I don't think he's saying they're excess funds. I don't think by
Balance.
definition they're excess funds.
no, well,
They're
The-
pot funds. They're
Right.
funds that are in the pot that haven't been assigned to
They're
a
not
project.
excess, just
Well,
to be
they're
clear.
unassigned funds that could be assigned towards any state highway as its category 2 funding, correct?
Well, I think you're putting words in his mouth. I think it's in that category, and they're choosing to use it for this. I don't think you can say they're excess, or what else did you say?
Unassigned.
I don't think, I
No,
think
the
they're in
point-
that pot. Category funds, category 2 are assigned funds.
Well, you have to assign it to a project on a state highway, correct?
see, this is where I'm getting confused, and I'm not trying to, but it says from state's first 601. So if you had funding left over from that project, then it should just clarify that it's that
I
way.
think from, that is describing the limits of the project and not describing where it's
Okay.
coming from.
Okay, it's not the money transfer,
It's the-
okay.
All right. Thank you for the update.
Item number 7, public meeting and stakeholder meeting notices for Texas-Mexico border transportation master plan.
Presentation on this. Yeah, that's me.
Hello, board members. Hugo Hernandez with TxDOT El Paso District. I'm here on behalf of TxDOT Freight and International Office. And just a brief presentation or notice, if you will, for the Border Transportation Master Plan. The Border Transportation Master Plan is going to be a comprehensive multimodal binational plan. It's usually done every 5 years, so it's time to update this plan, and it's usually an effort that is done through our Austin office, our international office. This will identify, as usual, as any other study, it will identify existing conditions, and it will propose alternatives. As you can see on the map, this is a very large study. It's going to cover the limits from the Santa Teresa port of entry. Even though it's a TxDOT-driven study, because the MPO area covers up to Santa Teresa, this port of entry will be included in the TxDOT study. And it's going to go all the way down to the Gulf Coast. There have been several meetings already being conducted by our Freight and International Office. They were in the Lower Rio Grande Valley already, early in the month, and in the Laredo region just this week, actually. And then next week, this is what I would like for everyone to participate and put it on your calendars, please. April 29th through May 1st. they'll be here in the El Paso region. The April 29th meeting, it's a public meeting. It's going to be conducted from 5 to 7. The Freight and International office is going to be at the El Paso Community Foundation, just in front of the placita. There's going to be free parking at the Mills parking garage, so everybody is encouraged to attend. This is an open to the public meeting, so if you can please pass it down to your stakeholders, that'll be greatly appreciated. On Tuesday, April 30th at 9 a.m., it's going to be a regional steering committee. This committee is going to be formed by several leaders. They're going to be sitting at the main table. They're going to be the ones that would take, if you will, a decision-making body and would take it up to our Border and Trade Advisory Committee in Austin. This is going to happen at UTEP. There's also going to be in the afternoon a stakeholder workshop where every agency, every trucker, every broker is invited to participate. This one is not open to the public, but is open to every agency and everybody that does cross-border movements. And of course, everybody here around the region, New Mexico, and all the way through the Presidio area, to the Presidio Port of Entry. So both meetings are going to be happening at UTEP at the El Paso Natural Gas Center. There is free parking. I can send the parking permit to the MPO and they can forward to you, or you can email me directly and we can provide the parking permit. On May 1st, they'll be back here to the MPO presenting at the Transportation Project Advisory Committee. They're going to do a brief presentation and a brief update of what the Border Master Plan is going to do. Again, our role in this one is going to be very critical. We need decision-making bodies. The issue that we were discussing earlier, this is going to be the great opportunity to present not just to TxDOT. Everybody from the federal government, CBP, GSA, the Mexican authorities, delegations are going to be invited to all these meetings. They hopefully will be at the table as well. And so all these presentations that the MPO and all these work that our counterparts in Juarez are doing, it's going to be very important for us to present it at this body. We need the commitment to participate from every agency and the stakeholder. The plan is for this to happen every other month. So Austin office with consultant collaboration is going to bring these meetings every other month to the El Paso region. Again, this is an effort conducted by the Freight and International Office. That's the project managers are Tim Juarez, and the HDR side, the consultant is Alejandro Solis. I'll be the point of contact for the El Paso district. My name is Hugo Hernandez again, so if you have any questions, please let me know. Make myself available to you guys.
Any comments, questions? Thank you.
Chair, can I make a pitch for this as well? I really encourage everybody to attend these meetings. In my prior life, I was able to attend meetings in other regions throughout the border, Laredo and in the valley. And the participation in those regions is tremendous, not just by the public entities, but truckers, freight forwarders, and all that. El Paso has been behind in terms of participation. So I strongly encourage everybody to attend and make your concerns, voice them out, so that they're on the record. And we don't get, Laredo and the Valley, they typically speak louder than we do here in El Paso. And
Yeah, I just want to tag on to what Eduardo is saying. The fact of the matter is I've been to a bunch of freight meetings in Brownsville, in Laredo, and in other locations in Dallas, where I was the only one from El Paso that was there. On a couple of them, we had a representative from the city bridges. But no one else from El Paso shows up at these things. And believe me, there are commission members who attend these meetings, and they take notice of that. It's incredibly important that, just like with the priorities on what the development should be, the interest of this area in this master plan and all of the things that the mayor was talking about earlier, that is a subject that this plan will be looking at. So it's critically important that folks from El Paso show up.
What strategies do you have for getting the word out for people to show up? Are you meeting with any of the local media to talk about these text-mix meetings?
Yes, we have done press releases, and actually Lauren Macias Cervantes and Jennifer Wright have done a great job. They've done, actually this morning, they did a media interview, and I believe they have another appointment right after our policy board. We've tried to do social media as well, and of course, we've tried to send some media emails to those that we have contacts.
Is there any budget for print advertising, billboards, anything like that with the meetings coming up?
I would have to double check with the project manager, but I believe that's probably doable, definitely.
Okay.
So there's different meetings that are taking place throughout the state. There's a Mexico border coalition of some sort that happens in Austin. We send our bridges people. I know our economic development people have been to those meetings, and then they only allow certain people to sit at the table. These meetings that you're referring to are separate from those.
Yes.
Yes.
So can you just make sure that you send out and say, these are the dates we're referring to that you need to go to, so that we're all aware? I mean, these are just the ones that are in our backyard, right?
That's correct.
So was there any reference to any of the other ones that happened to what Bob was saying about he's the only one there at certain meetings? Is that Austin? Is that other meetings like that?
Yeah, I think you're referring to the Board of Trade Advisory Committee,
Yes,
which is
I
a
am.
TechSet committee.
I am.
And I think you're right, I was obviously in the audience at the time, but many times, well, there was, very, very small participation from El Paso. But also when TechSet was completing the statewide freight plan, that was another time where there were stakeholder meetings, and the ones that were held in El Paso, the attendance was very, very low.
Well, I think what would be helpful is if there's those kind of meetings, if you could tell us what we need to be going to, like a month's out in advance, and we'll make sure we get there. I mean, that information has not been free-flowing.
Okay.
And then, like that other one that you're referring to, that one was supposed to be like a big deal meeting, and only certain people could go. And so we sent the appropriate people that needed to be there. But if we need to go with larger numbers, and you want us to speak, we have no problem showing up and saying a lot about what's needed. So if you could just please tell us what dates those are in those important meetings, and we'll make sure we'll send a lot of people.
We can certainly, TechSet can certainly work with the MPO and forward those dates as well.
Yeah, if you could send that to me directly too, because I know you've been really helpful in the work that
Will
you've
do.
been doing. So if you can do that, that'd
Will do.
be very helpful.
Will do.
Can we make a request for another public meeting? For sure. Because you have one public meeting that's being done on Monday, and, I mean, you're saying you're going to, sending out press releases, this past week? So, I mean, that's really not a lot of time for people to schedule.
But no, we have done some efforts actually 2 weeks ago. We did an actual press release. There were some interviews this morning.
Keep in mind, this is not a district function. I have to host the meeting on Tuesday morning, which is why I can't come to city council, but.
Be in city
Yeah,
council.
I
so
I understand that, and it's very
it's a
unfortunate.
great way to
but,
plan it.
This is a group out of Austin that is running this study. We're supporting them locally.
Is there a way to get an additional round? Because when you have the meetings back to back to back, if there's people that are not in town, they're missing any opportunity to input.
We can certainly ask. Again, they're gonna be here every other month in the region. So, I mean, they're gonna be, it's 18-month study.
So the Tuesday meeting, April 30th, the 2 to 4 p.m., that's the same meeting as the 9 to 11 a.m.?
It's similar, however, they're gonna discuss without a decision-making body. So they're gonna
So
go
the 2
into
to
the
4
weeds.
The 2 to 4 people are making decisions, and otherwise you can't say anything?
No, you can. I mean, they're gonna be noted for the plan and discussed at another meeting. Mhm.
And what are they asking? I mean, what do they want to know? I mean, is there a primer of what what do they want to know?
All the issues, like the study that the MPO conducted, the small report, those are the things that they really want to know. They want to have interviews with the brokers, find out their procedures, their logistics. Those are the things that they want to find out, because one of the aspects of this study, this is not just going to do transportation or infrastructure improvements. They're also looking to see what policy changes we can provide to the
So it
federal
would be
government.
helpful, it would be helpful maybe to send people on environmental issues, economic development issues, and also public safety issues?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is primarily an organizational meeting, this first one.
Correct.
So that stakeholder workshop would be really good to send all of your technical folks to. It's in the afternoon, and maybe if you, city council meeting's over.
The stakeholder one on
quickly.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay. What about the Monday one?
The Monday is a public meeting. It's open to everybody.
Yeah.
They will have a brief presentation and some exhibits explaining what the border master plan is all about. Just like the district corridor studies, they'll have information about the border, what current issues they have, gather information.
And Wednesday's just their meeting with TPAC, or is that just?
They will, it will be an item with TPAC
Got
to
it.
present to the board. Another one that I don't have here because it's a City of El Paso Bridge Committee. They will also be at that committee in the morning,
Okay.
presenting an update.
Okay.
So these series of meetings have been presented, that print advertising, like to the different,
Yes,
do you know which specific publications?
I would have to double check with the information officers.
Because there's the different, like, border economy magazines and weeklies that are going out, the El Paso Inc.
Mhm.
Do you know if they're,
I'm not sure. We would have to double check.
because I'm a little bit bothered by the fact that there's discussion that we don't show up like Laredo, then there's no clear indication of how these meetings locally were advertised.
We can also certainly ask them to come to a policy board meeting and have a presentation here.
Can they present at the El Paso City Council?
Yes, sir.
I think we're somewhat of a stakeholder group in this community. It also probably makes sense for them to present at the county commissioner's court as well.
Actually,
at a bare
I
minimum.
believe they do have an item on Monday in the morning. Mhm.
So you're saying this group's coming in every other month?
Every other month, yes, sir.
So then, can we schedule,
So I was just told that they are presenting to the commissioner's court on Monday morning.
okay,
About city council.
so, well, they're having their meetings during our city council meeting.
We can certainly request that, definitely.
Well, why does it have to be requested? They should have already had that in their plan.
I would have to double check
I
with
mean, the
them.
biggest city in the county
Definitely.
should have been included. And
We
what
can
about- and
have
what
them
about
come
the
back.
small cities?
They
Maybe
are all
Texas?
invited and we can certainly have those
But-
meetings. The plan is not to be, and the reason why they're planning every other month is that it's gonna be a rolling meeting set, rounds. So maybe next month we can have it in Tornillo area. Next month, the following time, we can go to Juarez, go to Chihuahua. We're gonna try and cover the whole region.
I think I would suggest that perhaps we,
That's-
well, go ahead, I think you were talking.
No, I'm sorry, you were not finished yet, I apologize.
So,
City
so
Manager.
I think that if y'all had, like, we could have a joint meeting with, I mean, that'd be up to the mayor and the council, but we could have a joint meeting with the smaller cities and us. And maybe we
Definitely.
could all
That's
have a
a
meeting
great idea.
together and you
Yes,
could
sir.
tell us all at the same time. That could be a Monday work session, that if the mayor was open to that we could invite all the small cities and it could be all the councils and mayors that could hear it all at one time.
That would be great, yes.
We meet every month with all the mayors, and our next one is in Benton, I believe, May 6th or something. I don't know if it's possible we could invite the mayor and, could I talk to you about that? In Benton, we're having 6 of the municipal mayors will be getting together. So we've been doing this for like 4 months now.
Okay.
So that could be your audience, and then, of course, we could include the city or do them separate or whatever, but whatever works. But it's a great group. We meet regularly, and
Yeah, and we're not behind the ball. I mean, this is actually just kicking off. So, I mean, this is a perfect thing to have this coordination.
So I also think too that looking at, when you guys are coming back every other week, that'd probably also be a good time to look at having public meetings and an adequate amount there. I don't know if the state senator or other folks from our delegation can touch backs with folks in TxDOT in Austin, but I think that, you know, again, you're going to have a statement saying that we don't participate as a region on the same level these other places, yet we're all scratching our heads about what kind of outreach you guys have planned with us here. You know, something doesn't add up, and it's a little bit unfortunate, you know. So I would challenge your group to really go and look at what ways you can really activate participation here on a regional level.
Definitely.
Not just with the stakeholders here, but with the public as well.
Yes, sir.
So we can get up to those Laredo numbers.
Yes, sir. We'll work with the MPO to start some type of plan and stakeholder outreach as well.
And just to add to both of your comments is I understand that like the county judge said, they meet with our mayors. Some of our mayors don't care. Some of our mayors don't inform us. So that to me is nothing. You know, we need to notify, because there's some of us in council that really care about what we want, our visions and our goals to come to fruition. And if the head of the seat doesn't really care to notify us of what's been said and stuff, then these meetings for us are useless.
That's why I was suggesting
And that's
all
why I
the
was
councils,
exactly
all the mayors, and hear it
that's-
all at one time.
And that's what I was saying. You know, I just wanted to piggyback on both of your comments, because we need to be informed, you know, so that we can do the right thing, because I know that our issues are different than Mayor Leo's or than El Paso's, but nevertheless, we're affected.
Yeah.
And I think what it would show, just the message itself, is unanimity and the fact that all those elected bodies were together, you know, giving input. And I think it would send a strong message to Austin if they're saying we're
And I
not.
agree.
Yeah. So.
I totally agree.
It also makes sense to have a presentation at the Rio Grande Council of Governments as well.
Yes, sir. We'll request that.
Plenty of discussion on that item.
Thank you so much.
You should have higher numbers, but then nobody knows what's going on.
We'll be there on Tuesday, the City of Summer Park.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna jump over here to the item number 8, Executive Director's Report.
All right, thank you, Mayor. 4 quick items. First, on the Sunland Park conformity update. We had a very good session yesterday morning with Federal Highway and the consultative partners. They provided some of the initial round of comments for the conformity documents. As you all know, we need to show conformity for the New Mexico piece of our region no later than August the 3rd. So, based on yesterday's conversations, we're on the right path. They were pretty minor comments that we got. And so the staff is going to be working quickly to address those and send them back, and hopefully we'll get a good news very soon. That's the conformity update. The second one, the project completion report for the 2020 network, something that I think Roger has been informing the board. And this has to do with the projects that need to be completed by 2020. One of them was discussed earlier, the county project on Pelicano. Yesterday we received the last batch of information from TxDOT. We've got the information from the city and the county. So it looks like those projects are going to be complete in time and will not be an issue. The third one, which is now looking forward, the schedule to develop the new set of documents for the MPO, which includes the new, the CMP update, which we discussed earlier today, which leads to the travel demand model, the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and the corresponding conformity documents. Again, the deadline to complete all that, you see the red dot in November of 2022. That's our ultimate deadline. You know, that's when the 4-year conformity clock expires. But so we are setting up a schedule today to begin and make sure that all of these activities are done in time, making sure that we don't fall behind so that we can meet those deadlines. As you know, that's one of the commitments I made coming into this job, making sure that everything is on schedule. So with that, we will be providing updates on how we are going on this with you all on a monthly or quarterly basis. And but at the same time, let you all know that MPO staff cannot do this by ourselves. We need the coordination from all of you when it comes to project lists, to information, and working also on some of the procedural stuff like the procurement, whenever we have to go out and procure consultant contracts, working with the city's purchasing department. We had a good meeting a couple days ago to kick off these efforts. So at the same time that we feel a very strong responsibility for this, but we also need the cooperation from all the agencies. Any thoughts or questions on that? All right, then finally, the Paso del Norte Trail Master Plan. MPO was invited to participate as part of the stakeholder group for the Paso del Norte Trail project that is sponsored by the Paso del Norte Health Foundation. And Judge, you and I were there yesterday. At some point, they will come to the MPO and make a presentation for this. They're asking at some point, they will ask for a resolution of support for the project. So today, I'm just giving you sort of like the initial, the heads up that this may be coming. Hopefully next month, they'll be able to come and make a presentation, and they will be asking also for a resolution of support in the future. So we have a very nice document that they gave us yesterday with a master plan for this trail. It's a 60-mile trail going from the county line, Paso County, all the way to the state line in New Mexico. 60 miles. The intent is building hike and bike recreational trails, encouraging people to have more of an active lifestyle. Again, the health issue is very important for the Paso del Norte Health Foundation. Any thoughts, questions on that?
Just can I comment quickly? It's a great program. Obviously for us, there were three narratives that came out. One of them was the connectivity, and I can tell you that sometimes we think region, but if we don't get county first and city together, then it makes it difficult for us to be talking about regional initiatives. And so I think the connectivity of coming from the west side all the way to Tornillo is just amazing. It'll require a lot of collaboration. The other thing that came out that was very clear, and that is alignment, that we have to make sure that it sort of touches, one of the ideas that they have is that it touches to certain existing sites. So it'll connect from one place to the other. So it requires that. But the alignment that I thought is very important is that the left hand knows what the right hand is doing, kind of thing, that they're going to be a lot of touch points. For example, with the Alameda corridor, there's some touch points there. There's certain areas that, so what I think is really important for the MPO is for us to understand what is it that they're doing that might align with what we're doing, so that saves them a lot of money, and then we can have better connectivity. So I think it's a great idea that, I'm glad Eduardo was there, because he was able to understand the project, and I believe it's something that will take us to the next level. It also will divert traffic in some sense by doing that, and pedestrian use and hiking and those kinds of things. And so there's a lot of dimensions that are going to be really important. Like I said, it'll take us to that next level of being that city that we wanted to have in county. So, I really appreciate anything that we can do to understand the project and be part of it. And we're trying to also get UTEP to be a partner. As I've said several times, that every city that I went to said, if you're not having the university lead the initiatives, it's going to be difficult to accomplish them because of the type of resources that they have and the academics and the research and everything that can follow behind. So just want to encourage that kind of attention to this project. So thank you.
Representatives from the city there?
Pardon me?
You mentioned at this meeting there was representatives from the city there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because just to dovetail on it, I don't think I could be a bigger supporter for the Paso Norte Trail, because I think that it really adds and complements not just what the county and other stakeholders are doing, what the city's doing as well. Our investment with our trailheads, we've opened 4 trailheads up in the last 2 months that are, I think, complement that. In terms of looking at the paved trails, you know, you have everything from the Riverbend Trail to the Playa Drain Trail, which is, I think, basically building out part of that. So I don't think that it's really should be looking at, when we're looking at these trailhead projects, these paved trail projects, I mean, yes, the funding sources is coming from different places, whether it's the county, the city, state, feds, whoever, but it's all part of this, I think, this larger trail. And I can tell you that within my district with the city, you know, plans are there for a country club trailhead, for looking at some of the laterals to turn those into trails as well, and that's part and parcel of what that plan calls for. So I really think that you're spot on in looking at this really as a regional amenity and something, a necessity that all of us can take care of. But I think the city is working hard with it, has that same direction as well.
And the alignment, just by accident, I was talking to Texas A&M, and they have these incredible projects on trails, but utilizing trails to mitigate flooding and beautify sort of, and so I talked to them, and Tracy had not met them, and so they got to meet, and there was some alignment, and that's where we thought about, there must be other things that are taking place that we make sure we're all sort of moving in the same direction.
That's it.
Thanks.
All right, that concludes our agenda for today. The next meeting for the TPB is going to be May 17, 2019. If, at this moment, I entertain a motion to adjourn. There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously.